friends, and welcome to Teacher Therapy. Today's video is going to be about the pros and cons of being a teacher. The reason I am doing this video is because I am actually in the process of deciding whether or not I should continue teaching next year. If you're new to this channel, I am in my 7th year of teaching. I've taught every grade between 4th grade and 8th grade, and I have taught at 4 different schools in the 7 years that I've taught. So been around the block a little bit when it comes to teaching, but I tend to find that the pros and cons stay the same no matter where I've been, no matter what grade that I've taught. And so I am really trying to decide whether or not teaching is for me, and pro-con list helped me a ton when making decisions. So let me know in the comment section if you can think of any more pros and cons that I miss. All right, so let's dive in. I actually want to start out with the cons. That way we can end on a positive note for this video. So the cons really come in the form of complete and utter and total exhaustion. Truthfully speaking, I find teaching to be exhausting on every possible level, mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually exhausting. And that's because really you're giving everything that you have as a teacher. You're on 24/7 when you're in front of the kids. It's really difficult if you are having any kind of off day or personal situation going on, because the show must continue and it must roll on no matter what, as long as you're in front of kids. And on top of that, kids are very needy little creatures, whether they are teenagers or preschoolers. They have a lot of needs, and you have a lot of kids that you're dealing with, whether you are a self-contained elementary teacher or whether you're a middle school or high school teacher with 150 kids. It doesn't matter. When you've got 20-something beings in front of you at a time, pretty much all day, that job's just going to be flat out exhausting. And as I've mentioned in other videos, I think the expectations and the workload that teachers have today is super unrealistic. The standards are so unrealistic that it just makes the job even more exhausting. It's kind of like running this eternal race with a little carrot dangling in your face, and you're chasing that carrot and you're trying to grab it, but it feels like you never really grabbed the carrot. And if you get a little chunk out of that carrot for a minute, you kind of don't get to enjoy it long, because you just know you have to keep running. The daily grind just continues and continues, and I just think teaching is flat out exhausting in a way that I don't know that a lot of other professions experience in the same way. So I would say that that is a major con of teaching. There is also the concept of taking home tons of work. Teaching is one of the odd jobs where basically you have to prepare and do the work of teaching when you're not at work. So that could be in the mornings, that could be during your lunchtime, during your break times, at home, on the weekends. So even though it does seem like our hours and everything is ideal, really we're taking a lot of that work home anyway, and of course it's going to be unpaid since we're salaried. So there's just an enormous workload no matter what subject you teach. There is so much preparation that goes into teaching, and so much preparation in terms of grading, and especially in modern times with the data obsession. Not only are you doing the normal work of teaching, which all teachers have done since the dawn of time, lesson planning, grading, but now there is so much data tracking and so much documentation. And basically, you know, you're having to make portfolios and you're having to create artifacts. So you're doing double work. You're doing the work of teaching, and then you're having to compile this mass of paperwork proving that you're doing the work of teaching. And that doesn't even include students with IEPs, 504s, all of those things that require documentation, intervention students that you have to prove all of the different measures you're taking to meet the various student needs. And so it just ends up creating a mountain of work. Next, we have, of course, kind of the kids can be a pro and a con. A lot of times they can be just kind of disrespectful, defiant, lazy and unmotivated, difficult. And this one, the next thing I'm going to say is not necessarily the kid's fault, but I just feel like today kids are coming with needs that are so enormous, and it's bigger than a teacher's ability to even meet those needs. And those needs can be emotional, psychological, they could come from trauma, they can come from, you know, just different educational deficits, they can come from any degree of situations. But I've talked to teachers that have been in the profession for over 20 years, and pretty much all of them agree that it seems like students are coming into the classroom with more problems, more issues, more challenges. And oddly enough, as the standards get raised, it kind of started, you know, with No Child Left Behind, and then Common Core, and then different adaptations on a state-to-state basis. Basically, they're raising the standards, the content is getting harder, but it seems like the kids are coming in farther and farther behind. So it's this horrible combination of harder work and harder standards and students that seem to have all of these gaps and deficits. Now, it could be different maybe if you're in an affluent area, or just depending on maybe the state or the county that you live in. But basically all the schools that I've worked at, especially in Title I, urban situations, a lot of times the kids are 1 to 3 years behind, and having a kid on grade level is the exception and not the rule. And then on top of that, even if you have a kid that's on grade level, having them be willing and committed to doing the work and, you know, making the gains that needs to be shown for that kid, that's just, it becomes even more rare. So it feels like the student that comes to you that's emotionally well adjusted, that is eager and motivated to learn, that's on grade level, that kid almost feels like the unicorn kid. It feels like there's maybe two or three of them, if you're lucky, per class of like 24 kids. So all of the rest of those kids are just, they have these massive needs, and you're only one teacher, and you might already feel burnt out, overburdened. You've got your own stuff going on in your personal life, and you're expected to meet all of these needs of all of these different learners, and on top of it, document that and prove that you're meeting all of these needs. And then that kind of goes into the next thing. Essentially, teachers have less and less freedom over what they can teach and how they can teach. So I think in yesteryear, a pro of teaching could have been creativity and really bringing your passion to the field. So maybe if you had a passion for the Chronicles of Narnia, or for something, I don't know, Star Wars or something, you could find a way to incorporate that into the curriculum, into the classroom. But these days, it seems like a lot of districts and a lot of schools are moving more and more toward a really pre-canned, pre-scripted, pre-prepared way of teaching. And I have actually had principals that have told me they essentially want to go into my classroom and go into my grade level teammates' classroom at the elementary level, and they want us to be within 5 minutes of doing what the other teacher is doing. And to me, of course, I think that's crazy and ridiculous. Every teacher is going to be so different. Maybe we're teaching the same standards, but we want to do it in a different way. But in a lot of schools, that's just flat out not allowed. Some schools will go as far as to check the page that you're on, you know, check your pacing constantly, and want to know that you are 100% following a script. And then naturally, if you have kids that are between 1 and 3 years behind, trying to follow a grade level script without modifications can just turn out to be pretty impossible. Another thing that's really kind of frustrating about teaching today is basically, it's constant change. There are so many different initiatives and things that are introduced into a teacher's workday, and they change so frequently that you can never really master anything. It feels like these days in teaching, what is faux pas one year can be the bee's knees, the thing that you have to do the next year. And it just feels like this mass of confusion. People tend to not plan for the long haul. The powers that be are basically in emergency mode. A lot of times, especially again, if you teach in urban districts, you have a problem with test scores perhaps, and the administration is just looking for a quick fix and a band-aid, and they come out with all of these new mandates and things that you have to do, and then before you know it, just when you're feeling comfortable with that, they're changing it up again. They're getting a new curriculum. They're telling you need to use these new different teaching strategies. So I just think in a way, yesteryear's teachers could really master their craft. But today, you know, when I talk to veteran teachers that again have been in the field for like 20 years, they're feeling like first year teachers every single year because of the constant change and the lack of consistency. And that really goes for administrators Too. I mean, at least speaking with the 4 schools that I've been a part of in these last 7 years, every single school, within 1 to 2 years of me being there, the administrator was leaving and going someplace else. And so even if you get into a good situation where you feel like you really go great with the administrator, you feel like things are great, there's a good chance that in a couple of years that administrator is gone, and then again, everything is starting from scratch all over again. Another con of teaching is an enormous mountainous sense of pressure. Pressure, stress, it's the name of the game. Yes, you do get brief reprieves for your holidays, for your little vacations, but you just know when you're coming back, there's just a mountain of stress and deadlines, data, and just the pressure of constantly being observed. I know that's one of my pet peeves, just the constant observation and the constant checking and the constant micromanagement. All of those things can become very stressful, and I do not think it was like that for teachers back in the day, but it's changed these days. And this is kind of a funny one, but slightly serious. I think a lot of teachers today feel like they are one mistake away from a lawsuit or from being on the news, because it's just a weird society that we live in today. It feels sometimes not only that administrators are micromanaging us, but it feels sometimes like parents of kids are micromanaging us. And it even feels sometimes like the kids themselves are micromanaging us. It just feels like teachers are living in a fishbowl with unkind eyes on us all the time. And it could be the silliest of things, but a lot of times, just for whatever reason, the society we live in, a lot of people just don't like teachers. They're really looking, it feels at least like they're looking for teachers to mess up and to make a mistake, to say the wrong thing. And it can just yield to this really, really stressful environment that is honestly not a lot of fun to work at. And yeah, I feel too like the standards that teachers are judged by are really arbitrary these days. It feels almost impossible to be an amazing teacher, because a lot of times when you get evaluated, you can get marked off for something silly, not having your objective written on the board. Maybe your bulletin boards are not, meeting expectations. I remember at another school, one observation that I had that I felt so good at that after that observation, because I thought I just nailed it. I thought it was amazing. But by the time the administrator got back to me, all she was talking about was these petty, trivial things. She's like, you didn't really have up your anchor chart. Your I can statement didn't look like it was updated. You didn't have student work posted in the right place. And I'm thinking, I just delivered this amazing lesson. The kids learned, they were engaged, and they're excited, but I'm getting marked off for all of these silly, arbitrary things. And like I mentioned earlier, I just think the amount of proof that teachers have to provide that they're doing what they're supposed to has gone to a crazy pants level, and it starts to kind of feel impossible to succeed at teaching these days. And that really is kind of the gigantic con of teaching these days. Let's talk about the pros of teaching. Sadly, my pro list tends to be really short by the time I write it, but they're fairly big pros depending on where you're coming from. So I think the obvious pro of teaching would be the ability to really change and impact kids' lives. I really see teaching as a mission these days, because it's so hard. There's so many obstacles that teaching really tends to be pretty sacrificial. A lot of times, and I would think in most situations, teachers do not become teachers or stay in the teaching profession for the money. Even though the holidays are pretty awesome and that is a pro, it's not enough to keep a person in teaching. At the end of the day, if you continue to be a teacher, it's got to be because you really love students. You really love the idea of being able to help students, of being able to transform kids' lives, even save kids' lives. And of course, we've all heard the amazing stories of the teacher that, changed somebody's destiny, that just magical, amazing teacher that changed somebody's life. And those stories are real and those stories are valid. And even though we may not have those kind of situations happen every day, they're real. You can feel and see ways of making kids' day brighter every single day if you're looking for it. I think the problem is the job has gotten so hard and so ridiculous and so out of hand. And I know this is supposed to be the pros. I don't want to be too negative, but truthfully, I just think the job is so hard that it's getting harder and harder for teachers to be able to make that kind of impact. When you have tons and tons of pressure on teachers to get these test scores, to provide this documentation, to jump through all of these new teaching hoops, to constantly learn new curriculum, to constantly be under the scrutiny of parents and any random person that walks into the classroom, when you put all of that on the teacher every day, it can almost feel even harder to even be happy enough and to have enough energy to pour out, to love the kids, to transform their lives, to be that bright, shiny, happy educator. So I would say to really be successful in the classroom today, you have to love teaching and love students so much that it eclipses all of the cons. And that is definitely an individual person-to-person thing. Some people can find a way to kind of hack their mindset in such a way that they can push away all the pressure and not let it bother them. Some people are super organized and super inclined to be able to do mountains of paperwork, and they find awesome time management strategies and they're able to manage those aspects as well. Some people have amazing interpersonal skills and they're able to navigate the hardest of parents. So there are certainly teachers out there that, in spite of all of the challenges and the things that are stacked against teachers today, they find a way to keep making that impact, to keep shining, to keep loving kids, to keep teaching like a champion. But I'm just saying, I think it's getting harder and harder every day for teachers to be able to sustain this job over the long haul to make those kind of impacts. But by all means, I think that there are certain people that are absolutely called to it, and they are just magical, awesome human beings that can sustain things in this job over the long haul. And if that is you, kudos to you, you rock and you are awesome. After just 7 years, I'm just kind of in the place where I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing it, because personally, the stress is just so great for me. Just really quick, I'll tell you about my week this week. I started off Monday morning crying my eyes out because this is what my week looked like. Monday after school, I had a challenging parent meeting. Tuesday during my plan time, I had an intense IEP meeting for a student. Wednesday after school, I had another intense parent meeting. It was for my coworker, but the whole team of teachers had to be there, and this mom's really challenging to deal with, so that was hard. Thursday, I was supposed to go to an all-day math conference, even though I'm an English teacher, and that in and of itself stresses me out because math stresses me out. And then Friday, I had my, formal yearly evaluation, so that was stressful. And then Monday, this coming Monday, I have the third highest district administrator coming in my classroom to observe me doing this new teaching thing that we're supposed to be doing that I don't feel comfortable with doing at all. And that's just in 1 week, guys. So can you imagine, with all of those meetings and all of that stress, trying to be like happy and shiny and push it all out of my head while just thinking, how am I going to get all this work done? It gets hard, guys. And I do think that that's why a lot of teachers are reconsidering whether the field is for them. But at the end of the day, I think, if you love working with kids, they can be so much fun. They can make you feel young again. You can laugh your head off during a school day, sometimes. And I think usually kids are the best part of being a teacher. Seeing that light bulb go off in their head, convincing them that they can do something when they don't think that they can, helping kids make the right decisions in their relationships, even listening to kids, process about their home lives and tough situations. All of those things are things that make teaching amazing at times. It's amazing to feel like you're helping kids and like you're transforming lives and like you are helping a kid have confidence and love learning. All of those things are awesome and incredible. And those are the pros of teaching. And of course, again, the holidays are nice. Having insurance is nice. That's pretty much what the pros are to me of teaching. Yeah. So if you're just wondering, if you've stayed this long to the end, what am I thinking about doing? Here's what I'm thinking about doing. And some of the options sound kind of sad. I thought about doing substitute teaching. I thought about just being a para. I thought about trying to be an ISS teacher. I've thought about being an instructional coach. But, I don't know about that one. And you know what? I've thought about like working at Target or something. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing next year. And another thing I'm thinking about is maybe doing what my undergraduate degree is, and that's basically some form of youth ministry in a church somewhere. I don't know, guys. But a part of me really would be sad to leave teaching because I do sincerely love those kids so much They can certainly light up my day. As much as they make me mad and get on my nerves, they can certainly light up my day. And just sometimes just, I don't know, the love that you can get from the kids is so amazing. Just that beautiful bond of teacher and student can be amazing, but then sometimes it's not. So it just really depends at the end of the day what you feel like your gifts are, what your threshold for stress is. Some people can, you know, deal with all of the stresses of teaching with no problem. I think it's just a personal decision about what you can handle and what you can deal with. And I will certainly keep you guys updated on what I end up doing next year. But for now, I have 3 more months of teaching left for this school year, and I hope to keep doing my best. So I love you guys out there, and I hope you have a really great day the next time you teach. And also please comment below. Let me know what you guys think about the pros and cons of teaching, and please comment, subscribe, like, all of that great stuff. Share with your friends, and thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day.